Hi kids, it's Pastor John, and I'm here to bring you this week's Children's Time. Today in worship, we're hearing a story about Jesus, and it comes from the Gospel of Luke. It's a lot like a story that we hear in the Gospel of Matthew, but it's a little bit different. In both of the stories, Jesus tells some important things to a large group of people. And sometimes we call it the sermon. So in Matthew's version of the story, we call it the Sermon on the Mount because Jesus went from a lower place up to a higher place so that the people could see him and hear him better. But in the way that Luke tells the story, Jesus goes from the higher place and he stands with the people on the same level that they are. Well, there's some other differences in the way that they tell the stories, because in Matthew says that Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Well, in Luke likes to say that Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." There's a big difference between those two. And one of the things that I've experienced throughout my lifetime is that mostly when we talk about being blessed, we really mean that we have lots of different kinds of things. But Luke says, "Blessed are the poor who don't have a lot of things." So I wanted to tell you a story about what it means to be blessed by someone who has very, very little. Long ago, in the summer of 1995, almost 27 years ago, I went on my very first mission trip as a youth minister. We went to Mexico. At that time, I lived in Texas, and we drove all the way from our home in North Texas all the way down along the Rio Grande River to a city called Reynosa. And there we stayed with a man who was a doctor in town. And every day we would go out into the little villages called colonias, where the very, very poor people lived. And every day we would drive out there, and some of the people who were doctors and nurses and dentists would set up a little clinic for the people of the colonia to come and to receive medical care. Well, one of those days, I was walking around and helping out in different ways, and I had my camera with me. And I was taking some pictures of people, and I always tried to ask them if it was okay if I took their picture. And I just happened to notice that there was a mother and a little girl sitting in line waiting so that the little girl could be seen by the doctor. You see, they didn't have even enough money to go into town to see a doctor that was there. Instead, they had to wait until the clinics came out to their little village, their colonia, so that they could wait in line to see the doctor. And this picture is the picture that I took of her. And if you look real closely at the picture, you can see that her arm is in a bandage, kind of like a cast. If you broke your arm, the doctor would put your arm in a cast so that your arm could heal just right. Well, I asked her mother if it was okay if I took her little girl's picture. And she said yes. And so I kneeled down and I waited and waited, and we tried to get her to smile, and her mother and I were even laughing because she just would not smile. She sat there the whole time just like this. So we decided we're just going to have to take her picture without a smile. But if you look at the picture again, what you'll see is that she has a big smile on her face, because right when I hit the button on the camera to take the picture, she smiled. Now, I've had this picture with me for 27 years almost. And every place where I've been a pastor, I've put this picture on a shelf in my office to remind me about that little girl. I think in this picture she was probably about 1 year old, which means that now she's 28 years old. Wow. And every time I look at this picture, I think about her. And I wonder what she's doing with her life when she's 28 years old. She probably has her own kids. Well, the thing about that is that she didn't have even enough money for her mother to take her to the doctor. But she was very happy. She smiled and she gave joy to me and to her mother. We laughed after that too. And every time I've looked at this picture, I've thought about her and how much she has blessed me. You see, she was very poor, but she felt like she was blessed enough to give happiness to somebody else. Now, kids, I want you to know that blessing isn't about how much stuff we have. It's not about whether our lives are easy or any of those kinds of things. Blessing is about how much joy we give to others. You see, blessing in the way that we are blessed as Christians means that we look for opportunities to make other people's lives better. Will you pray with me? Dear God, I thank you for this little girl who so long ago was such a blessing to me, that she has given me joy every time I look at her face. And I pray that all of us may be able to be such a blessing to people that we may never even see again, so that all of them may know how much you love them. Amen.